Coming up next, we have the continuation of my interview with licensed private investigator Paladin WH. And tonight, our conversation is dedicated to the 1 October 2017 Las Vegas shootings that had targeted innocent concert goers at the Route 91 Harvest Festival, a festival set up by the Mandalay Bay, the same resort casino where the shootings allegedly came from. Tonight, Paladin joins us to talk about the worst mass shooting of civilians in U.S. history.
And I think it's the second one. I think the first one goes from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And then the second one goes from like 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock the next day. If you watch that roof cam on the second one, you will see a lot of stuff going on over at the Tropicana. A lot of stuff.
Like what, for example? Just that movement?
Well, you're going to see a lot of strange people going in and out of the Tropicana.
Yeah, that were probably involved in what was going on.
Somehow, yes. And you're going to see, well, it looks like, what are those things called? Those guys from Saudi Arabia, what do they wear on their heads?
Turban.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of guys with turbans.
Wow. Because one of the Brad Johnson named Mumet and Umet Kokengul in his investigation report, and I thought I saw Umet Kokengul in a video right after the shootings coming from the area of the Tropicana. By George, I made a video of that also, and I just put on there, I'm like, I'm not saying this is Umet Kokengul. You guys make your own choice or your own judgment. And I put both pictures up. Like I put Umet Kokengul's picture up right next to the guy in the video, and it looks like the same person.
Now, this isn't the video that was taken inside the Tropicana that everybody thought was the Crown Prince, you know, that turns out to be that guy who was a security guy with the Trop.
You know, the one. Something different.
Yeah, that's completely different. This is the video that was shot from the roof cam of the Mandalay Bay. It's the same video that shot the crowd that we were talking about earlier. Okay, you know, remember when the shooting started and it focused in on the crowd, you know, and it did a close-up rather than, you know, we were talking earlier, rather than pan over to room 134 and 135 where you could see the shooting, and the one that looked on the, you know, the same roof cam that looked on the roof, you know, that panned around the roof?
Yep.
Okay. That one later on and there's two, I think, Weg and the other guy who was doing that. Oh gosh, his name, Las Vegas Shooting Archive. They both released those videos, and the first video from that roof cam is from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Okay. And the next, or it's like 9:50 to 1:50 in the morning. And then the next one is from 1:50 in the morning till 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock the next morning, and it's daylight. Okay. That's the one you need to look at. It's the one where we see the guy running across the roof. Have you seen that on the Tropicana?
Yes, I have seen that video, and
okay.
There's no doubt about it that somebody's running on that roof. And I made a point of that. I made a stink about that. I said, because to me, I'm being a security guy. Now, under normal circumstances, that would be security or maintenance access only. And I kind of made a point about that, and somebody said, "Oh no, there's steps that could go up and anyone could get up there." Angelica Gretchen made a video or something like that, and I asked Angelica Gretchen, I said, did you go out there and make a video up on that roof showing that anyone can get on that roof? And she never replied.
I was just going to say, I thought somebody actually did just what you said and they were able to get access, or they could have. They didn't go out there, but they did They did a video that showed they could have went out there if they wanted to. Now, the thing of it is, security, okay, that security cam at Mandalay Bay is trained at the valet area of Tropicana for 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Okay. And there's a reason for that, because whoever was manning that camera in the security room was listening to the police radio, and they knew something was going down at the Tropicana. That's why they had that focused on the Trop.
And then John Lear also talked about crisis actors as well. So he was
Yeah.
saying that he,
And he said Paddock was still alive too, I believe.
yeah, there are people who said that Paddock purposely made a video just days after the shooting at another casino to prove that he was still alive, or to show he was still alive, and I've not been able to get my hands on that video.
Yeah, it was a video. I've seen that video. I think it was taken in Atlantic City. And it was taken, they were sitting at a table playing cards. And I don't know if it's Paddock or not. I don't know that Paddock sat down and played cards. I thought he always was on a machine. But anyway, it's like at a table, and there's, 6 or 7 people sitting around the table. And the guy that's filming it is at the other end of he's the opposite end of the table, where it looks like it's Paddock, but it's Atlantic City is where it is. And it looks like a poker tournament or something, because the guy holds up in the video, he holds up a piece of paper that tells you what the event is and what the date is. But that was, I don't know. And you got Paddock sending that money supposedly over to the Philippines, and that was for Mary Lou. That wasn't for Mary Lou. I think that was Paddock's getaway money. I think if we ever find out what happened to Paddock, it wouldn't surprise me if he isn't over in Thailand or the Philippines, because he had a penchant for Asian girls, and he wired that money over, and they tried to say, oh, that was for Mary Lou. Mary Lou had no intention of going back over there to live.
Right. And supposedly she was there prior to the Lombardo said that she was there prior to the shootings, and they were wondering if she was recruiting people to come and take part in the shooting. That's one of the avenues of investigation, I guess, that they were doing.
Well, the interesting thing is I don't know if you read any of the evidence drops, but there was a interesting interview with a hairstylist, and she talked about Paddock coming in there and getting a haircut, and her and Paddock having a conversation, and Paddock alluded to, shooting or something, and then Mary Lou came in to pick him up, and the hairstylist made a comment to Mary Lou that he's talking crazy stuff or whatever. And Paddock said to the hairstylist, she doesn't have to worry about it because she's not going to be here.
Wow. Man,
and
that's
anyway, the FBI shut her down in a big hurry on her story.
yeah.
Okay, and it's in one of the hundreds of interviews that they did, and what her story is. And she, they scared her out of her story, saying, well, we went back and looked at your records, and Paddock was never in here, so you're lying, and if you're lying to us, then we're going to have to arrest you. So they basically forced her to withdraw her story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what they did. They said, well, now if you stick with this story, that means that you're lying, because we went back and looked at records to see if he was actually here then, and we can't find any record that he was here. So therefore, if that's the case, that means you're lying, and if you're lying, we're going to have to arrest you for that.
And John Lear
But
talked about he thought that the shooting was meant to target the prince, the I don't know how to say his name,
Yeah,
Salami or something like that.
yeah. Um,
But I find that hard to
and
believe because why would somebody shoot randomly into a crowd if they're trying to hit a prince that's supposedly on the top floor of the Mandalay Bay?
well, okay. Here's another thing in the police dispatch stuff. They report shooting on the in the Four Seasons Hotel, which is the top 8 floors.
So beneath the foundation room is the Four Seasons.
No, on top. They're the top 8 floors of the Mandalay Bay Hotel is the Four Seasons.
So that would include the foundation room. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, and see the foundation room. Yeah, right. Okay, right. All right. So in the dispatch tapes, they are talking about a shooting going on I forget which floor it is, but it's in the Four Seasons, and that the shooters escaped down the stairs. They couldn't get them. There was also a shooting in the actual casino in Mandalay Bay.
Is that when
Okay.
they were talking about Strip Steak Club or the Crystal Room? They were talking about shooting in both of those locations.
Yeah, and there seems to be a confusion about the Crystal Room, and I don't know that that's ever been squared away. Supposedly the casino in the Four Seasons is called the Crystal Room, uh,
Okay.
and and then there's also a part of the main casino in Mandalay Bay for the high rollers that's called the Crystal Room.
Oh wow.
So we never did get that sorted out, but there was a shooting in the Mandalay Bay Casino. Now, Hartsfield, the cop that died,
Yeah.
you know where his cell phone was found?
No.
In the Mandalay Bay Casino.
Hmm.
Yeah. So there's something going on there too. Now, my well, let me just say one of the things that could have been, you know how big he was, right? And he was special forces in the army or whatever branch of service he was in.
Yeah.
He's like 6'6" or 6'7" and 270 or whatever. Would be the exact kind of guy that you would have as a bodyguard, right?
Yep.
Big, bad, and intimidating, right? Now, the story is that he and his wife and one or two of her friends went to the concert, but somehow when the shooting started, they got separated, right? Well, she couldn't find him, so she's going to these hospitals to try to find him. Okay, and she's at one of the hospitals, Sunrise, I think, but I'm not sure. And this is in a report done by one of the officers, and she sees him and she goes up to him and she says, "Have you heard anything about my husband? He's a Metro officer." And the guy says, "No." And she says, "Well, I can't find him." And so, anyway, long story short, he tells her to ping his cell phone, right? So they ping his cell phone, and the cell phone is in the Mandalay Bay Casino. And supposedly he was shot at the concert.
Hmm. So more
So
lies.
I'm wondering, and I know there's a whole underground system in Vegas, okay, and it's not the homeless thing that everybody's aware of, but that's, I mean, I had a cousin that went out there in the '60s and dealt blackjack for 30 years, okay, and I know some other guys that have confirmed the same thing. There's an underground tunnel system in Vegas where they take all the fucking money, right, and count it. That's where all the stuff goes as far as the money goes, all right? So anyway, I'm wondering if the prince, Mohammed bin Salman, was at the Four Seasons. There was a shooting started, They got him out of there, and he went down in the tunnel system and went over to the Tropicana and ended up at the Tropicana. And the whole Stephen Paddock shooting thing was a cover, okay, to assassinate him. That's what I'm wondering.
Do you mind if I include the last few minutes of our conversation in the video?
Oh, I don't care.
Are you sure?
Well, I don't know, because it's I mean, I'm a private investigator. I've been doing this for, a lot of my adult life, and I can't confirm it. I can't prove that, but I wonder about it based on the fact that what I see over there at the Tropicana around 4:30, I see someone that, well, I see guys come outside with their turbans on that could very well be bodyguards, okay? Then I also see another person that comes out and gets into a vehicle and goes and leaves, okay? And it's so far away that I can't be sure who it is. All right. But then I tie this in with the fact that on the police radio, they talk about, and this fits, they talk about taking a VIP to Trump Tower.
Wow.
Now think about this. Where was Trump's first overseas trip when he became president? Saudi Arabia.
Oh, Saudi Arabia.
When, remember he did that deal for all the arms, and
Yeah.
everybody was up, everybody got all sideways about it. Okay. And in November of 2017 is when the prince, they called in all those people. They did that purge. He got all those people into the Ritz Carlton. Al-Walid, they hung him upside down. You remember that?
No.
Well, you can research it. It's out there. And so in November, the next month, the prince took over, his people took over the Ritz Carlton, and he brought in a bunch of local, Saudi Arabians, and Al Walid, who was one of Trump's arch enemies, was one of the guys that they brought in there, and a couple of them died. Okay, and they were in there for days, and supposedly the prince brought in some special forces guys from the United States. I don't know if it was official guys or Blackwater guys, but there's stories out there. You can find them.
When you say in there, you mean in the Mandalay Bay?
No, in the Ritz Carlton in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, okay, overseas.
Yeah. In November, the prince, they pulled in a bunch of people in Saudi Arabia into the Ritz Carlton, and a lot of them were the Saudi Arabian royalty. Al Walid, who owns part of the Four Seasons with Bill Gates, okay, was one of the guys that they brought in there and supposedly hung him upside down and
Like
tortured him.
literally?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man.
So, based on the timing, you could say, hmm, did they really try to get the prince in Las Vegas and they failed? And so the prince did about a month of investigation and then rounded all those people up and brought them into the Ritz Carlton and questioned them.
That's the way it would look.
Because see, when the king of Saudi Arabia died, bin Salman's father was made king. Okay. Now, when his father named bin Salman crown prince, okay, he bypassed, skipped over a bunch of older, people in the royal family that should have been the crown prince, because the crown prince is like the next guy in line. Okay, and he bypassed a lot of people. Okay, like his brothers. and Al-Walid would have been one of the guys that he bypassed. So he made his son the crown prince, which means anything happens to him, the crown prince becomes the king, right? Like the royal family in England, if something happens to the queen, then it's Charles because he's the next oldest person, right? He's the heir.
Yeah.
Well, in Saudi Arabia, you name the crown prince as the number 2 person. So you name that person. So it doesn't necessarily mean it falls to the next oldest person. So anyway, I mean, you know, and I don't have any proof. I don't have the proof, but I put together the fact that we have a reported shooting on the Four Seasons, and that's on the Mandalay Bay. That's on the police scanner stuff. That's out there. I mean, that's in some of the evidence releases. And they said that the shooter or shooters escaped down the stairs and they couldn't catch him. Okay. And then there's some other information where one of the cops goes into the Tropicana right after the shooting stops and runs into a security guard and he says, "Where is everybody?" And the security guard's like, "I don't know." Right? And then you see the stuff on the video on the roof cam of the Mandalay Bay where you see that person running across the roof. And then you see a lot of interesting, strange activity out in the valet in the parking area there. And then all of a sudden around 4:30, you see these guys come out with, that look like they could be bodyguards. And then later, a little while later, you see this other guy come out in a turban, only we're dressed in red and black, and he gets in a vehicle and he drives away. This is around 4:30 or 4:45, and all of a sudden the lockdown of the strip ends. Okay, because that's another strange thing. Lombardo goes on television about 1 or 1:20 or 1:30 and says, "Hey, we got the guy. He's dead. Everything's cool. Everything's fine." Well, Joe, why is the strip still locked down till 4:30 in the morning?
Yeah, they had everything locked down, the exits, the highways.
Yeah, everything. I mean, they put people in the hotels and wouldn't let them leave, right? And then is it a coincidence that right after we see these 3 bodyguards, what look like bodyguards, come out and stand in the valet area, and then we see another guy come out that's Arabic, and he's and he's dressed in black and red, and he gets into a vehicle and then he leaves, and then the lockdown, is it a coincidence then that they lift the lockdown around the same time? And on the same time on the radio dispatch traffic, we hear that they are escorting a VIP to Trump Tower.
Who do you believe that was?
Somebody pretty important, because I can see where Trump would have been notified and Trump says take him to Trump Tower because they've already got security there because of Trump being president. And,
Interesting.
and that would be the safest place for him to go if somebody is trying to get him.
Brian Shields talked about that helicopter with the weird transponder acting like it was a jet or a plane.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
then John Lear said that they transported the Saudi prince away from the area via helicopter.
Well, that's possible. I suppose that's possible because the VIP that they escorted to Trump Tower could have been a decoy. I don't know if you've done any bodyguard work or something, but you do a lot of decoy shit. You do a lot of look-alike stuff. Body double stuff. I mean, that's part of it. So I don't know. That could be, but I do know on the radio that some VIP was escorted to Trump Tower. I do know that. That's on the radio dispatch stuff.
Do you think that could have been the Saudi prince?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's if that's the Saudi prince. I mean, we've never been able to confirm that he was in Vegas then. So, and I don't know who that person was that walked out of the Tropicana and got in that vehicle and left. But around the same time on the radio, see, you got all these different sources of evidence, right? You've got that roof cam that shows you visually what's going on over at the Tropicana. Then you've got to go through the hours and hours and hours of dispatch calls to catch the time of when they escorted the VIP to Trump Tower. You see what I'm saying? I mean, there's a lot of stuff. You got to go through stuff. I mean, and this stuff was coming out every single week. So we had to go back over evidence because it's like, something that got released 2 or 3 months ago. We're like, wait a minute. That's about the same time that this happened. So then we'd have to go back and try to find what body cam that was on, or whatever the reference was to hook them up time wise.
I know the way that they released the evidence in bits and pieces was made
Well,
it
of
difficult.
course, and that was on purpose. That was on purpose. And
Yeah, it messed.
they cut those body cams up. I mean, some of those body cams are 5 minutes, and then others were 2 hours.
John Lear talked about an underground subway that goes from under the Luxor to the Tropicana and then off to a secret military base. A new one. It's not the old Sandia, but it's the new. They call it the new Sandia,
Yeah,
and it's somewhat in the area of Area 51.
yeah, and I thought it was Bellagio.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was. It is.
Bellagio,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is Bellagio. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, because it goes right in that straight line along on that side of the strip. You're correct. From the Luxor to Bellagio, which is right on the same side of Las Vegas Boulevard. But then they say it goes to that area, that property that used to be the Stardust Ranch,
Yeah,
and
the Echelon, where
yeah,
now
the
is,
Echelon project.
yeah.
They've
Hmm.
been working on that now for, gosh,
That's
it must
fake.
it
That's
must be
fake.
I
That's
think it's
cover.
13 years now, and they say that they're building the
It's cover. That was cover.
Yeah, I believe the same thing because they're saying that they're building Resorts World there. The property. If you go by it, it looks like it's looked the same for the past 13 years. They're not building anything there,
Hang on. Let me see.
and it even
There.
looks. And then, while we're on the topic of shady looking construction sites, if you look at the Vegas Super Wheel right near the venue, people were talking about somebody shooting from one of those towers at the Super Wheel. Well, that Super Wheel was never built, and then Mike Turber tried saying that it wasn't there during the shooting, but we saw that it was there during the shooting. In his footage, you could see that it's clearly there during the shooting. So then
Right.
he keeps changing his stories, but. So
Mm-hmm.
that not only were those towers there, but they never actually built the Super Wheel, and the project's been canceled, and the property now is for sale.
Yeah.
So, Laura Loomer talked about laser tracking a bullet strike, and I heard information that it goes to one of those towers. So that's another thing I'm going to ask her if I can get her in an interview is about those super wheel towers.
I had a guy that did that for me for the on the tanks. Um, the fuel tank shots,
Yeah,
and they come from, I forget. I've got that video somewhere. Do you remember Cornwall?
yeah, I heard all about him, and then when I started trying to check him out, it looked like he'd been he got kicked off of YouTube or something.
Yeah, they deleted him. But anyway, his I asked him to do that for me, and so he did a because I didn't think those shots came from Mandalay Bay, because that one top shot, I didn't think that it could possibly, because of the lip on the top of the fuel tank. I didn't think that the bullet could clear it because the Mandalay Bay is taller from the 32nd floor. It's taller than that fuel tank.
So you thinking somebody down lower shot up?
Yeah, and so he did an analysis for me, and I forget where it came from, but it was like down in a ditch somewhere. I could identify where if I saw the the layout where
But
it
you
came
know
from.
about the cover of the Echelon project being for an underground
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
subway?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I just watched a video of Lear talking about that last week. Have you
Yeah.
seen that? Have you
Yeah,
seen?
and not
Yeah.
only that, but I got a whole bunch of information about that from Lear. I couldn't get him in an interview. I'd love to get him in an interview, but I made a video with like basically providing all the information and maps. He made maps and everything showing where where he thinks that the underground subway goes, and he talked about the shadow government and the people that over at these secret bases and what they're up to, which is
Mm-hmm.
all no good.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
could I ask you one more time about those two buses with the potential crisis actors?
Yeah.
Where were they again? One
One
was
was over at the cell phone lot at McCarran, and the other was at the T-Mobile Arena.
okay.
And both of them, the dispatchers, because the cops were wanting to interview them, and there was radio traffic, and basically they referred to them as refugees. That's how we made the connection between the two places, and they were not allowed to interview them.
And so some people think that that group may have been crisis actors involved in some sort of a FEMA drill.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I'm just saying that whoever those people were, okay, they went to a predetermined place and got picked up by buses who were there waiting for them to arrive. Okay? That's what I know.
And then the only weird thing then would be that they were the location, I guess, and that they were referred to as refugees.
Yes, the location and they weren't and the cops were not allowed to interview them.
Okay. So that is very strange circumstances, just not a crowd taking a bus.
Yeah, and the thing of it was, what was interesting was that if you look at a Google Maps or a Google Earth at that area where Melissa Ramirez was supposedly, you will see that roadway or lane or whatever you want to call it behind her, there's a gate there that's locked. That takes you to a hangar. Okay? That gate that road takes you to a hangar where there are airplanes. And it has been intimated, somebody said, well, that's where they fly them out to Area 51. Well, anyway, that gate was open that night, and those people were able to get through there and get over to McCarran, get across the runway, and get over to McCarran to the cell phone lot. That's the only way they were able to get over there.
Wow.
And then they were picked up. They were picked up at the and of course we heard all the stories about some of the people, getting into some of the hangars, private hangars at McCarran, right?
I didn't even know about that. I only heard that they ran across the runway.
Oh yeah, what's the guy? Yeah, there were pictures. They took some pictures, and there was some body cam video of some of that. One of them was, what's the guy who is it the oh shit, Dana White, the guy who is that MML or MMS or whatever that is. You know
Oh,
the
okay.
the, the Ronda Rousey stuff,
Yeah, yeah. I like
mixed
Ronda
martial
Rousey,
art,
the athlete.
MMA, mixed martial
Oh
arts,
yeah,
right?
he's the president or the owner of
Yeah.
the of
Well,
MMA. Yeah.
yeah, well, one of the hangars they got into was his hangar because they showed pictures or a video of they took cell phone video or video of the plane, and it was his plane.
And it would be
They were
abnormal for them to actually go in the hangar, I think.
okay. I mean, if we're going to talk about airports, there was 9/11 calls that indicated that there was a shooting that there were hostages taken and that there was a shooting at one of the helicopter places where they give the helicopter rides.
Hmm.
I don't think it was Maverick. It was one of the other ones. Although it could have been Maverick. It's been so long now I don't remember.
I didn't even hear about that. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, see, it's in all those dispatch calls and those 911 calls.
I know they said that they had a suspect on one of the helipads, but there isn't a helipad on the Mandalay Bay, so I couldn't figure out what they were talking about.
But there is. There is on the top. There is right in the middle.
Really? Of
Yeah, there
of
is.
of the
Yeah, yeah.
Mandalay Bay?
Yep, yep, right in the middle of the, where the center core. That's where it is. Yeah. Yeah, we looked at that. But anyway,
Is it
this is
like is it a known or is it like a private thing? Does it
that
show up on Google Earth?
I believe it does. I believe it does. Somebody confirmed that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But anyway, this is one of the with this is one of the helicopter this is one of the companies that gives helicopter rides, okay? There's Maverick. I know Maverick is one of them, and I forget there's like two or three others that give the helicopter rides, right? Along the strip. And anyway, somebody called in and reported that there was shots fired, and there were also they took hostages at one of those helicopter ride places. That's right there at McCarran too.
I know the MGM actually has a private, its own helipad at or adjacent to, right next to the McCarran airport. That I did find out when I was investigating. Because MGM is very suspicious in all of this with the
Oh yeah.
insider
Oh.
trading and James Muir. And I mean, I got paperwork of the insider trading. It's no longer a question of
Oh
theory
yeah.
or
Yeah. And see that and what does that tell you? That tells you they had foreknowledge. That's what that tells you. They knew that was going to happen. And of course Soros almost he shorted almost 2 million shares of stock. He knew what was coming down too.
do you think that Soros and Bill Gates have a hand in stuff that's going on in China or
No,
nano
no,
like a vaccine or something?
no doubt. There's no doubt. No doubt. No doubt about it. No doubt about that. Okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, you can see I mean, if you go to Google Earth or go to Google Maps, you can see the helicopter pad on Mandalay Bay.
It's not citizens saying this. This is the police talking in the radio, and I heard it, and they said they have a suspect on the helipad, and it was an officer. I saw his body worn camera. He was in the Mandalay Bay, which tells me that it was the Mandalay Bay. And I'm like thinking, well, I didn't even know there was one. So, but now you're telling me there is. So that's huge. That is huge. That means that they had a suspect up there, and this is coming out of their own lips.
Yeah, yeah, you can see it.
Did you hear about John Beelman, the murder suicide that happened like 2 or 3 days after the
Yep,
loss?
yep.
Supposedly they found a suspicious device that wasn't a regular old cell phone or cell phone charger, and I've got them in BWC footage where I can hear the radio transmissions in the footage. And
Uh-huh.
in the radio transmission, one of the radio transmissions, they talk about finding a suspicious device, and the officer orders them over the radio to secure the device.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling that because no one's saying that Beelman died or was killed because he witnessed the shooting. No one's saying that he was in Vegas. What the connection is that device supposedly that they found is linked to his company Ultralife Corp, and
Right.
that it's a device that's used by the I guess the CIA and maybe military intelligence or something like that. And his murder, they said that he was committed suicide and that he killed his handicapped daughter, which makes no sense.
Right.
But the thing is, he was shot in the back. So how do you shoot yourself in the back with a shotgun?
Well, yeah, I mean that there's numerous instances of that. You know, somebody commits suicide and they shoot themselves twice. You know, all right, okay, sure, whatever you say. Yeah, yeah,
Not only that, but I saw footage and pictures of a body. It looks like a body in the right in front of the house, in front of the garage, when the official narrative is that he killed himself and his daughter in the backyard early in the morning. So my
mm-hmm,
question, I'm always wondering, well, who's this body, or what's this person on the ground in front of the garage? So there was a
right,
lot of strange things with that case, and then the FBI raided the house like the day before the murder suicide, and they that is a fact. It's a fact that they raided, but they won't say publicly why they
right,
executed the search warrant.
right. Okay, now I see where Cornwall said one of the shots came from on the fuel tanks. I see where it is now. It's a ditch, and it's close to that where those two towers where the Ferris wheel was going to be.
Really?
Yeah, that's where he said
So
because
he also is talking about there being a shooter. Now that's the same location that Mike Adams, when Mike Adams talks about three possible locations, he talks about on top of the Oasis apartments, he talks about the roof of the AMPM, and he talks about the construction site or an elevated dirt mound or something near at the construction site. Well, those towers are for the super
well,
wheel. That's the construction site that Mike Adams talks about.
okay, well go if
I
you can
see
get to Google
you,
Maps, can you do that?
you see me. What you blow in the lines when you're making a scene. Oh yeah, you've gotta know what my head overlooks. The senses will show to my heart when it's watching for lies. You can't escape my private eyes. They're watching you. They see your every move. Private eyes. They're watching you.
He dropped off some folks from Uber the other day that was talking about how Vegas is not ready for a terrorist attack, pretty much.
Okay.
So I was getting in contact with somebody.
Like what do you mean? Like what were you saying? What kind of thing?
Well, they said they were in the military, right? I picked them up at the airport, dropped them off at MGM. So, and then they said that when they were here earlier, that Vegas wasn't ready for a terrorist attack.
Okay.
Just like in Paris and Belgium, you know.
Yeah.
The people could just come in and start shooting up the place at any time.
All right.
And then when I dropped them off, you know, usually when we usually say, hey, thanks for your service. When I dropped him off and he got out of the car, I says, hey man, thanks for protecting our country. He looked at me kind of funny.
Was he? What kind of bags? Did he have lots of bags on?
No, just backpacks.
Just backpacks.
And it was him and a girl.
Okay. Can you get him on the ball?
Okay.
And then just get good, make sure you get good contact information.
Okay.
One particular police officer was on the 31st floor, not the 32nd floor, and he was there for many, many moments. What we find interesting is that the Mandalay Bay security officer who was with that particular police officer before the shooting started and raced through the casino floor and raced up the elevators with him, this particular Mandalay Bay security guard said that he was on the 32nd floor with that particular officer in the video on the 31st floor. This Mandalay Bay security manager told the FBI on 9 separate occasions in his interviews that he was certain he was with this officer Hendricks on the 32nd floor. So we already knew that this officer Hendricks was on the 31st floor, but it wasn't until yesterday when all of that video was released that we finally got confirmation that something is wrong, something's amiss. This whole thing, it's just the tip of the iceberg. We've only scratched the surface.
Okay, now do you see the two towers
Yes.
where the Ferris wheel is supposed to be? Okay, now go east, straight east, and you're going to come to the Oasis Apartments, right?
Lines right up, yeah.
Okay, now you see between the Ferris wheel and the Oasis Apartments, do you see that ditch, that drainage ditch there?
And I believe that actually goes under the ground, but it looks like it's got a grate on it.
Okay, that's where Cornwall said one of the shots to the tanks came from.
Okay, so like somebody was down in there hiding, because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can hide
yeah,
down in there.
yeah, and he said that's where one of the shots came from.
So very close to the construction site.
Right. Now, okay, so all right, so if you go to the east of the Oasis, you see the two fuel tanks, right?
Yep.
Okay, now go north and you'll come to where you should see well, it's actually Haven and Reno, but it goes into a like a dead end, a cul-de-sac kind of thing, just north of the tanks.
Little side road.
Well, it's actually if you go to Reno, go to the church. Let's go to the church, the Roman Catholic Shrine of the Most Holy Redeemer.
Yeah.
Okay, so now go east and you'll see that looks like a hotel, and then you'll see Haven Street that goes south.
I see it.
Okay, now go Haven Street down to the end and you'll see a cul-de-sac there, right?
Go past the little circular turnaround.
Yeah, just go right there to the circular turnaround. Okay, now do you see there's a road that runs behind the parking lot there that goes east to a hangar at McCarran?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, that gate, there's a gate there. That gate was unlocked that night. That's where Melissa Ramirez in that parking lot is where that whole thing was filmed, okay? And there were people walking there on that road that ends up going to a hangar, and that's how they got across the runway. And I don't know if the cell phone lot is identified here or not. I don't think it is on this map, is it? No. There's short-term parking. Yeah, here's the cell phone lot. Okay, if you go across the runways from there,
Towards Swissport, USA. Oh, I see it. Directly above Swissport, USA cell phone lot.
right, okay, because you see all those fuel tanks, right? And then you see the cell phone lot?
Oh yeah, and there's
Okay.
even more fuel tanks there.
Right, okay, so that's where they picked those people up. And I think it's the same people that went running through there because that gate's open. That gate was open that night, and it is not open during the day.
I was going to say, this area looks like it would normally I would think it would have security.
Well, I don't know, that night it didn't. I call that spook fucking central.
Yeah, why don't you explain a little bit about that now that I'm recording again, about the companies in this area and how it's spook central?
Well, you've got, okay, if you go there where Melissa Ramirez was killed, or where the video was shot, you're going to that security company has an office in that same area, not in the same building, but there's actually three buildings there, if you can see. There's the one, if you go down Haven Street to where it has that cul-de-sac area.
Oh,
Okay,
we're back across the runway again. Okay.
Yeah, we're back over to Haven Street. You see Haven, and then if you go down to that cul-de-sac, you see that building, and then there's another building that's sort of skinny, and then you see another building that's square that sort of fronts on Reno.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now the middle building, okay, which is the skinny one, that's where CDC, that security company, they've got an office there, okay? In the building that's got the tree right in the middle of it, the one that's on Reno, close to Reno, that sort of fronts on Reno.
Yeah.
Okay, there's an acting studio in there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because some people are saying that there were actors involved in that, and that body wasn't a real body.
Well, anyway, it's interesting because if you go down there to where Melissa Ramirez's body, you saw those people walking in that parking lot, and they were walking east, right?
Yeah.
And so they can't get through there at the end, so now they have to turn and walk back north again. Okay? Because that's all solid wall there. That goes north, that runs on the east side of those 3 buildings. That's a solid wall all the way up, back up to Reno.
I think I see the wall you're talking about. Would it be on the right side?
Well, it depends on which way you're looking at it.
You know,
From which are
with
you
with
looking at? Is north?
up.
Is north? Yeah. Okay. Right. It'll be on the right side.
Yeah. It looks like there might even be a wall on the other side too. Oh no, maybe not. Maybe not. Just on that side.
But there is a wall there that goes all the way back up to Reno. So see, all those people who were walking through that parking lot would have gotten to the end of the building, and they would have had to have turned left or go north. That was the only way they could go, because it's solid wall there. And that would have taken them back up to Reno. However, that building, okay, I can see it here. If you look at that building that's closest to Reno Avenue, that's got the tree right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh
On the
yeah, it
left.
says the bronze, the art of training, tanning.
Okay. Yeah. Now to the left of that, you should see what's identified as the Las Vegas escape room. Exterius escape. It's right in the upper left-hand corner of that building.
Yeah.
That's the actor studio.
Okay. Now is this building that we're looking at right now the one where the surveillance footage was taken from in the Ramirez video?
No, it's all the way down. Okay, go back south. Go down to the 3rd building.
That building?
Yeah, the 3rd building.
So the one that's right near the kind of the circular turnaround.
Exactly. Now you can see, I think you can even see, yeah, can you see the camera? Yeah, you can see the camera.
You
there.
probably can because you've probably got a higher definition than I do.
Okay, but it's on that wall. Now, obviously there's a fence that runs there, and then you see that drive that goes over to the hangar at McCarran, right? Well, people were walking through there that night. You can see them in that Melissa Ramirez video. You can see them walking that direction. And that there's a gate there in that cul-de-sac. And in the middle of that cul-de-sac is where the keypad is. But notice at the top of the gate how the prongs go out. They're trying to keep people out. If you notice that. That gate was open that night. Wide open.
Did you see the 3 women taken into custody at gunpoint in the helicopter IR footage?
Yes, I did. At the drugstore. Was it at the drugstore?
Yeah, maybe that was a drugstore. Because on the back side of the building, it looked like there was a guy laying down near a transformer.
Yeah, that was supposedly a transient.
I'll tell you what, he bore an uncanny resemblance to the real Paddock.
It was kind of strange, wasn't it? It was kind of funny because that cop went down. They went over there to look at him, and I thought he was dead. I thought that guy's dead, and then they kicked him or said something, and he started moving. I'm like, oh my gosh! Yeah, I never forget watching that.
He looked like a big guy, and then it looked like there was a military duffel bag next to him, and that he had his gloves next to him and his shoes kicked off.
Yeah, wasn't that strange?
Yep.
that was that. Yeah, I'll never forget the night that one came out and we saw that, and we're talking about that. Now, I guess, okay, T-Mobile Arena, do you see? I guess that's not on, I'm sorry, that is not on the Strip. That is on Tropicana and the freeway.
I'm a little bit more used to regular Google Earth, but I'm getting used to this one now.
Yeah, it's actually T-Mobile. If you go up to where the Trop is and you go west to the freeway, you'll see that round building, and that's T-Mobile Arena, and that was where the other buses were.
All right, so go.
Yeah, go Tropicana till you get to the freeway.
I'm at Tropicana.
Okay, go. You
Oh, I
would be
see. I
going.
see T-Mobile Arena.
Yeah. Okay, so
Can't
that's where
miss
the.
it. It's over
Yes.
behind New York, New York.
There you go. Yep. That's where the other. That's where the other bus was.
Where they referred to them as refugees and weren't allowing the authorities to question them.
Right. So that's all I can think of tonight, buddy.
Man, you really went over a lot of stuff with me. You gave a lot of good information.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's look at the Tropicana.
Oh yeah, well I heard on the radio the police said that medical personnel were reporting that there was they were being shot at from the Tropicana, and then there were
Right.
if I recall, there were two victims that were shot. One was in the lobby of the Excalibur, and the other one was at the Tropicana.
Right.
When the
Right.
cops
Now.
responded, they responded to the Tropicana, and when they responded, it wasn't a false alarm. There was a gunshot victim.
Right. Now. Okay. Now go to the Tropicana. Go to the Trop, and on the Las Vegas Boulevard side, you'll see that sort of tall sign there that says Tropicana.
Okay, I see the Tropicana sign.
Okay, so just to the right of that is the valet area, and that's where the Mandalay Bay roof cam was trained that night for about 2 hours. That's where all the action is.
Is it a parking garage valet area?
Yeah, it's if you see that Tropicana sign, just to the right of that is the valet area there.
Yeah, I see all parking.
Yeah, you see the parking, and then it kind of stops where that sign is.
Yeah.
Okay, so there, that area between that sign and the building is the valet area.
You know, that same camera was also pointing at the Luxor for a long time that night.
Yes, yeah, because, and I think that's when they were talking about, they thought they had a car over there that had a bomb.
Oh, okay, and they kept looking at a minivan, and I
Yeah,
looked at the minivan, and then I said, does that look like Mary Lou Danley's minivan? But then it didn't look like the same one though, because I think
yeah,
hers was maybe a Chrysler or something, or a Mercedes.
yeah. Now okay, so go to, this is our last one. Go to Mandalay Bay, and you can see the helicopter pad.
Oh, now this I want to see, because I looked and looked.
And it
Oh, but it just doesn't have the H. Is it just a
yeah,
square?
right. It's just a square. Now, I suppose it may not be a helicopter pad, but it sure looks like it could be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm
Except
not,
for there is something that looks like it could be like an air conditioner or something popping up, but who knows
right,
what that is.
right. But I think if they had to, they could land a helicopter up there, I think.
Oh yeah. That thing's got to be pretty large.
Mm-hmm.
And helicopters are designed to land in small spots.
I mean, it looks like a little mini building, so to speak, sort of. I don't know that we can get ourselves down on that. No, we can't. You can't land on that roof to see. But that sure does look like it could be a helicopter. It looks like it could be a helicopter. You could land a helicopter up there if you needed to, if you had to.
Mm-hmm. And then there were witnesses that were saying that there were shooting coming from out of a lot of windows, and none of them were saying that they were windows on the 32nd floor. But
Right.
lower windows near the center of the building, I heard eyewitness reports, and that they quickly fixed the windows and didn't allow any, one to take pictures or anything.
Right. Right.
But
Now.
supposedly there was a bunch of shooting coming from the building.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's one body cam where the cops are having a conversation. Does that show? I'm trying to see if it showed. I don't see the cameras up there, but they're having a conversation, and the cop whose body cam is on the body cam. They're walking down one of the halls in the Mandalay Bay, and the cop they're talking to said they've got 20 bodies over at the venue, and the cop in the Mandalay Bay says, well, we've got 20 more here spread out in Mandalay Bay.
In the building?
Yeah. I mean, that's the way you take that conversation. We've got 20 here.
Wow.
And you see how the Four Seasons are the top. I guess it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe it's 6 floors of the Mandalay Bay. 3, 4, 5. Yeah, maybe it's 6 floors instead of 8.
What's the difference between Google Maps and Google Earth?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer. I can just get around a lot easier on Google Maps than I can Google Earth.
Oh, rotate the view. Okay, I think I'm
Yeah,
figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, it's for me it's easier. This one's easier, just to maneuver through.
And it looks good too. It looks a little more clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, the super wheel they never even built it, so that makes you wonder
Yep.
what the purpose of that was.
Yep. But it's interesting that Cornwall, he came up with that ditch is where one of the shots came on the fuel tank. That's where he and he's in like an engineer, and he did his thing, and he said that's where it is. He said that's where the shot came from.
Well,
He
the
said,
police said that the shootings, some of the early reports, they actually said that they confirmed that they were shooting at Alibaba and Giles. And if you look at Alibaba and Giles, there's nothing there. You wonder, well, how was somebody shooting there? Were they shooting out of a car, or were they
right.
standing on the ground? But if you
Mm-hmm.
look at this location that Cornwall was talking about, that could be what the police. That's not far from Alibaba and Giles, and you have to wonder if maybe that's where the shooting was coming from. And they referred to it as Alibaba and Giles.
Yeah, because some of the people that left, they thought people were chasing them, right? They
Yeah,
thought people
I
were
heard
following them.
witnesses saying that they felt like the shooters were closing in on them.
Mm-hmm. And I also find it interesting too that they were telling everybody to go to Hooters. Everybody go to Hooters.
Yeah, didn't John, the gentleman who was the victim that survived, it's on Goodman's show a lot,
Yeah,
Joe
Joe.
Napoli,
Yeah,
didn't he see casings on the ground outside of Hooters, I think it was?
that was the Trop. That was the
Oh,
Tropicana.
Tropicana?
Yeah, they went to the Trop. Yeah, he went to the Tropicana.
And saw
Yeah,
casings. He says he saw
on the
casings on the
ground.
ground.
Yeah, he saw casings on the ground. Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, I
That's a
interviewed him.
powerful testimony.
Yep.
And he seems pretty smart, pretty alert guy, like credible witness.
Yeah. But I found it interesting that they routed everybody to Hooters.
I don't even
Um,
know where Hooters is located. I totally forgot that they did that until you just now mentioned it.
Hooters is north of the Tropicana.
So way up there.
Yeah.
The funny thing is too, if you like, I studied all the reports of the shooting, and it was
Uh-huh.
if they were working their way from the Mandalay Bay up, or I don't know if it would be up or down, but along Las Vegas Boulevard towards the Bellagio and Caesars and all that. They were working
Right.
their way in that direction.
North, yeah. And that would be north, yep. But it's interesting that when they were leaving the backside there on Giles, the cops, I mean the body cams, they were telling them go to Hooters, which was north, through the Tropicana and up there. And that was pretty interesting. So now you've got the layout. And I'm sure there's stuff I'm forgetting.
Yeah, well, maybe we can have another show at some point in the future.
Because it's been a while since I've gone over this stuff. We really got into this stuff. We were, every Wednesday we were waiting for the drops for the evidence, and you never knew what you were going to get, whether it was going to be body cam footage or it was going to be witness statements or radio dispatch stuff for 9/11 or helicopter footage. I mean, you just really never knew what you were going to get.
Yeah, I love mysteries and trying to figure stuff out, and I was fascinated with this from the very beginning, just from the amount of gunfire. I mean, how does somebody sit there that long with that many police and security around and with a crowd like that? And then we found out the attorney for the victims, Catherine Lombardo, she revealed she's smart too. She revealed the fact that that was a Mandalay Bay venue. They signed off on the permit
Yeah.
for the venue. It was a Mandalay Bay event, that concert.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know that, and that further incriminates the Mandalay Bay's involvement. But just the amount of gunfire amazed me, and then I started looking into it after even the mainstream media was pointing out the inconsistencies in the timeline and stuff with between
Yeah.
the Mandalay Bay's timeline and the sheriff department's timeline,
Yeah. And that mostly had to do with Campos, right?
or the
Where,
the LVMPD timeline. Yeah, because Campos, no matter what, you can't. There was no way they could get out of Campos incriminating everything, including himself, and that's why he was told. Doug Papa found out that Campos was paid by the MGM to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and the only reason why they let him do the Ellen interview was so that he would, because they knew that it wouldn't be like really tough questions.
yeah, I mean, Ellen, I've still got that taped. I taped that off the TV, and she led him through that whole thing. She basically answered the questions for him. It was, I mean, and then of course you got some discrepancies between the Campos that was on her show and the Campos who got the awards, and I mean, it's really just nonstop with the problems with the whole Vegas thing. I mean, it's bad. It's just really bad, bad, bad.
But if they say that Campos was the first one shot, that contradicts Campos's testimony in Ellen interview where he says that at first he thought it was drilling. Well, hold on a minute, buddy. I thought you were the first one shot. How did at first you thought it was drilling if you were the first one shot? So I could pick him apart all day long.
I always wondered if when he said drilling, he mistook rapid machine gun fire as drilling.
That's another thing. How could you possibly mistaken gunfire for drilling? I mean, even like a jackhammer isn't exactly drilling. And
Well, the only thing and I hate to interrupt, the only thing I was wondering is if the shots that he was hearing were not in that room, they were further away. Okay? Because, one of the few good videos that Colin did was he synced up some of the shots and showed Hendricks on 30-31, when Hendricks and Varson got so far and the security guy got so far down the hall, and then they stopped, remember, and then you could hear the volleys of shots,
yeah,
and they weren't all the same as far as volume goes. And that was one of the few videos that Colin did that I thought were valuable. And I don't know if you ever saw that one, but he synced up all the shots, and some of those shots didn't sound the same or the same distance, from where Hendricks and Varson was. In other words, the volume, some of the shots were louder than others, and it's like, why would that be if they're all coming from the same location? You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And I don't know if you ever saw that video, but he synced all those up, and that was one of his good ones, in my opinion, because it's like, yeah, we got a problem here. So
Yeah,
I'm just wondering if what Campos heard were not actually shots coming out of 135 is what I'm wondering. And it sounded like drilling, But
yeah.
but maybe there was drilling. Who knows? They found drills in there.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. That was crazy. And then we found out about that tubing that they found. Well, that tubing that's medical grade tubing. So it begs the question: was somebody in there that was hurt and on some sort of a life support system or oxygen system? Just kind of strange.
I think that tubing was just part of the props. That's
Oh,
my
okay.
opinion. Well, the reason I say that is because, if he was concerned about breathing, if he was concerned about breathing, right? Okay, you can go buy a gas mask for $20, right?
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, if he's worried about breathing, well, what about seeing? If they hit you with gas and you're just breathing on that tube, you wouldn't be able to see anything, that would
Mm.
get in your eyes. So, why not do the gas mask, and you've got the mask on, you'd be able to see and you'd be able to breathe too.
Not
See,
only
it
that,
just,
but who would bother to break windows with a hammer and then not even draw the curtains? Because when the police went in there, they had to pull the curtains aside to look to see if the windows were broken.
right,
It made no sense, that crime scene.
right. It was all staged. I think that whole thing was staged.
Do you think anyone was injured during either of the breaches? Because people heard like,
No,
okay,
no. I don't think so. I could obviously be wrong about that, but I just I don't think anybody was. I did find it interesting though that they had that discharge. What's his name? That O'Donnell or whatever his name was, or whoever it was, had that discharge. That was pretty odd,
an
I
accidental
thought.
discharge.
Yeah, when
Yeah,
they
and they say
breached.
that happened. It coincided with the second breach, and what I think they did was the second breach wasn't necessary. I think they were already in that room from the other side, and they timed that shot with the breach to shoot the already dead body in the head. The already dead body was killed by a gunshot to the chest, and I have a theory
Yeah.
that my theory is that they shot him again in the mouth to make it look like suicide.
Well, they may have, but that body was dead for hours when they got there. Livor mortis had set in. That body would, whoever that is, and I don't know if it's Paddock or not, but I know the autopsy body they identify as Paddock is not Paddock. And I don't know if that body is Paddock or not, but that body has been dead for at least 4 hours, maybe 6, because you can see the livor mortis despite that crappy chin cam of what's his name,
Joshua Bitsko.
Yeah, Bitsko's chin cam. That's crappy. That was a crappy resolution, but you can see the livor mortis clearly on that body. And you're right, that body was shot in the chest.
Yeah, there was a hole, right? And it looked like they lifted up the shirt to prevent the blood from soaking in too much to hide that fact.
Well, what would happen, I talked to a doctor about that, and what would happen if you got shot in the chest and the blood would fill your lungs and it would come out through your mouth, just like that happened. Just like that body. Because, they say that he shot himself in the mouth, but the bullet didn't exit. I mean, I talked to a doctor about that too, and they said there's no way you shoot yourself in the mouth and that bullet's going to still be in your head. It's going to exit.
Yeah, that sounded odd too. And then even if you shoot yourself in the mouth, the bullet, people look at a bullet. Well, most of what comes out is very tiny, and most of what people are looking at is they're just looking at the casing that holds the powder.
Right.
So that little tiny bullet isn't going to bust all his teeth out. It's going to maybe knock out 1 or 2 teeth, unless you shoot him with a buckshot shotgun. And so the fact that they said that the dude had no teeth, that was another reason why they didn't think it was the same person.
Well, and another thing about that too, there's not that much blood in your head. You know what I mean? I mean,
there's brain fluid, right? Instead.
Yeah, there's blood, but not that much blood. I mean, that's just a bunch of blood, and of course the blood was 2 different colors.
I've got all these gun experts telling me in comments and stuff. I've tried to get a couple of them to interview, but they're all talking about how they hear a belt-fed machine gun in those videos. Yep,
I've heard that too. Yep, I've heard that many times. Yeah.
And even a couple of them, I got them saying it in body-worn cam footage that were police that were saying it. A lot of police are ex-military. They know their stuff.
And they were, yeah, and that's right too. There were some cops that were saying that too. Yeah.
So, and then I got Hancock at one point. Hancock saying he's looking for a belt fed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of talk about that, and that's another thing that's been overlooked and covered up.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, it's like, guys, where are the ballistics? I mean, that's how you solve cases, because a lot of times in a homicide with a gunshot victim, you don't have the bullet, or you don't have the gun. You've got the bullet, right? That's all you have. And so what you do with that bullet is you identify it. You identify the caliber, you identify, the markings on the bullet tell you what gun it has been shot out of. So then you are forever trying to find the gun that shot that bullet, okay? And the way you test it is you get the gun and you shoot a bullet into, water or wadding or whatever, and then you look at that bullet and you compare that bullet, the striations on that bullet, or the lines or whatever they're called on that bullet, to the bullet that you got out of the victim. And if they're the same, it's like a fingerprint, they're the same, then you got a match, right? That's how you find the weapon. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you gotta match the weapon to the person who owns the weapon or who shot the weapon. Well, in this case, you've got everything. You've got the bullets, you got the bullets, you got the casings, and you do the same thing with the shell casing because the firing pin hits it in the same place. You've got that, and then you've got the weapons. They're all up there in 135, and then they showed us where Paddock bought all these weapons. So you tie it to I mean, this would have been so easy to do the ballistics, it's not even funny. I mean, like I say, a lot of times when they're doing ballistics, the only thing they have is the bullet or bullet fragment that they take out of the victim. Well, in this case, they had everything, and they still didn't give it to us.
And if everyone knew that a belt fed was used, then they wouldn't have been able to get the bump stocks banned.
Right, and it would have blown up the whole thing on 135, right?
So yeah, that's why. And they got bump stocks banned after that, I think, right?
Yes, they did.
But before you go, did you have any information about the John Beelman connection at all?
Well, I knew about him, and I knew about the device that they found in 135 that didn't match up with anything. You know, and some people wonder if that John Beelman is the same John who put that, was it in 4chan or 8chan, that warned everybody a month or so ahead of time to stay away from Vegas?
Oh wow, that was
Did you
also
know?
a John.
Yeah, that was also a John. Now, I don't know if it was the same John or not, but a lot of people have wondered about that, if it was that John Beelman.
Did you know that right after the shooting, everyone like on the internet said that it was Geary Danley that did the shooting?
Well, I heard that eventually.
I mean, that's crazy. And
Yeah.
he's an interesting individual. If you look at he's another person that has worked for the federal government, although he's an Aussie from Australia. Him and, as far as I could see, him and Mary Lou Danley never actually even got divorced. So she was with Paddock while she was married to him.
See, I said, and I can't prove this, but I said from day one, when I heard, you know, the bits and pieces of the information, I said that that Mary Lou was his handler, was Paddock's handler.
Yeah, it wasn't really a relationship like people think. She's married to Geary.
Right.
What she is she's his handler. Yeah, that adds up. That makes sense.
And that's what I thought. That's what I thought from the very beginning, before I even got into it. You know, when I just heard the story and heard some of the details, I thought, well, she's his handler. That's who she is. And then, and then later on it comes out that, she works for the FBI. It's like, ay, you know? So I don't know, I hate to, I hate to draw conclusions on things, because it just goes against my grain as an investigator. And that's the problem with this whole thing with the Vegas stuff. It's all, I don't think we have all the evidence. We're missing some of the evidence. And so therefore, it's like you're trying to put together a puzzle that's 100 pieces, and you've only got half of the pieces. So you can't complete the puzzle until you get the rest of the pieces. And that's the problem with Vegas.
Yeah, because the point of on their end is to cover up, and they have covered some stuff up, and we can see that it's a lie, but it's hard to see the real whole picture, because
Yeah.
they have covered some stuff up.
Yeah, and the thing of it is with the ballistics, and I've said this, I said this officially. If they would have released the ballistics and it would have all matched up, we could have gone home. We wouldn't need to talk about this anymore. But they haven't, and it's like, why not? They do ballistics. I mean, I know from the autopsies alone, they got either bullets, whole bullets, or bullet fragments out of 46 of the 58 victims. I know that because it says that in the autopsies. And the thing of it is, another strange thing about the autopsies, I have never read an autopsy of a gunshot victim where they have found bullets or bullet fragments where the coroner does not try to identify the caliber. They know if they've done, if they've done gunshot victims before, they know what the caliber is, and they usually identify it in the autopsy. And they did not identify any of them.
You also pointed out that they never did a GSR test, which was interesting to point out.
Yeah, on Paddock. Yeah, exactly. They never did. I mean, they just didn't do any of the ballistics. They just didn't do any of the ballistics.
Yeah, and for the audience, GSR test is gunshot residue test. Very simple and very
Mm-hmm.
regular thing that they would normally do. I've had people say, "Oh, I'm not interested in Las Vegas anymore," but I've got I've got hundreds of subscribers who subscribe to me just because of me covering the Las Vegas and talking about the Las Vegas shootings. And I've got a lot of them, hey, whatever you can come up with, even who are still interested, very much so. A lot of them might be victims or were involved or were witnesses. So is that how
Mm-hmm.
you met Lady Justice, was from covering the Las Vegas stuff?
Yeah, because I put out, I didn't start looking into that right away, and unfortunately, I probably missed some valuable time. But I didn't start looking into that until uh, Fudenberg, Fudenberg, whatever, how I can't ever pronounce his name, the coroner, medical examiner, when I found out that he didn't want to release the autopsies, and then he did release them, but he redacted the names and all that. That's when I got interested. I'm like, wait a minute, something's not right. Okay, so that's when I jumped into it, which was like, you know, 3 months after the fact or 4 months. That was in January, the end of January of 2018. And so, anyway, when I did that, I kind of put the word out, hey, if anybody wants to collaborate and help with this investigation, get with me, let me know, send me an email. So Lady Justice sent me an email, and there were like 3 or 4 other people, and we had there for a while, we had about 5 or 6 people working on it. We just kind of split the work up and look at various things.
Okay.
So there was a team of us that was working on it initially, and she came to me and said, yeah, I mean, and there's a whole thing that she hasn't really talked about too much, and that was the shot spotter stuff. She had the shot spotter stuff right after it happened.
And ShotSpotter is a device that law enforcement has. Am I correct? That it's technology where they can, it helps them locate where shooting came from?
Yeah, it's like it's a computerized system that can identify where, it can identify what kind of weapon it is and everything. And they had that installed and in place in October 1st.
Yeah, Ramsey Dennison, I heard him talking about that too in his movie. Did you see his movie, What Happened in Vegas?
Was this the one about him? Because
It's
he was
Yeah,
supposed.
it's a good movie. I saw it. I would say only half of the movie that they talk about the Vegas shootings, and the other half they just talk about Las Vegas Police Department corruption in general, and some of their cases of police brutality, which is interesting because Doug Papa says that the homicide unit was taken off of the case, and they switched over to the FIT division, which handles officer involved shootings. So then the question comes to mind, who did officers shoot?
Well, the thing of it is, what that is basically, they call it, I forget what the FIT stands for, but basically it's internal affairs. And so, yeah, that was another thing that was odd. The homicide guys should have been up in 134 and 135 investigating up there, but they didn't let them do it. They let internal affairs. That's what the FIT thing is. That's internal affairs. And they did. Then the justification for that was O'Donnell's misfire, accidental
Oh,
shot.
wow.
That's how they justified that. But that's because they had more control over the FIT than they did homicide, and that's what I think.
Yeah, well, we know
Because
that that's true because the second in charge of
his
LVMPD, Officer Mayhill or something like that.
yeah, mm-hmm.
Um,
His wife, isn't it?
yeah,
That ran
she's in
FIT.
charge of
Yeah,
the FIT division.
yeah, yeah. but that's just I forget
Kevin
what that's.
McMahill or something like
There
that.
you go. Yeah, there you go. That's right. And the thing of it is, that's essentially internal affairs. They're always the ones that if you file a complaint against a cop, they're the ones who do the investigation. If you ever watched NYPD Blue, that's what Andy Sipowicz called them, the Rat Squad. But they are the ones who investigate the cops. That's internal affairs, and that's who the fit was. And Papa is right. They shouldn't have given that to Fit. It should have been homicide.
And I don't know
So,
why they what was I gonna say? The only thing I was disappointed with Ramsey Dennison's movie was he didn't have Brian. I thought he was gonna have Brian Shields in it, the helicopter guy, the ex-army, and I thought, but because he had Brian Shields in his previews and promotions for it, but then I didn't see him in the movie though. But
when did this come out?
within a year after the shooting, it's on Amazon Prime and stuff. It's called What Happened in Vegas by Ramsey Dennison.
Okay, but this isn't the one. Okay, that was, yeah, November 24th, 2017. But this isn't the one that he and Turber were supposedly working on. That's never come out.
No, and I laughed at Turber when he said that because I said, Turber, I'm like, Ramsey Dennison isn't going to work with you. I lived in Cali for a few years, and
Yeah.
I saw I was actually working at I think it's Camp Pendleton. I had a contractor job there.
Oh, really? Down in San Diego?
Yeah, I think that's Camp Pendleton, right? And
Yeah,
Cali.
yeah.
Yeah, for a little short period of time, I was doing some work there on the base, and there was this dude there one day that was working, and he was I found out like what it looks like when someone's on meth, they can't hold still. And this dude, he just couldn't hold still, and I told the other guys, I'm like, I guarantee, I'll bet you guys, anyone want to bet within a half an hour he's going to be kicked off the base.
Yeah.
And
And,
within like 15 minutes, a couple of army personnel came over, and I don't know if they were actually MPs or if they were just personnel, like that were working on the property where we were on that particular area, and they had a short talk with him, and then they escorted him off the base.
oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of my only experience with someone on meth, except for when I was talking to San Bernardino County Sheriff. I actually went through all their training and stuff. I'm actually still a candidate for hire for San Bernardino
Oh,
County
really?
Sheriff. Yeah, and they have a kind of a funny grading system. Um, it's a little bit different than some of the other agencies and departments. So they grade you 1 through 6. And so a 6 would be the lowest, 1 would be the highest. And what they do there is they start hiring 1s. And I was a 3. I'm a 3. So once they run out of 1s and 2s, the lower down you are, the less like you are to get hired. But I remember them talking about their biggest problem in San Bernardino County is the meth epidemic.
Well, okay, so, because I used to I lived in Southern California in the 90s. I was there from 89 to 2001. And I did background investigations. Now, they still don't have this department, but at that time they did MTA. They had an MTA police department, and I did backgrounds on their police officers for 8 years.
On San Bernardino County Sheriff?
No. For the MTA, the people, the bus people, they used to be, when I first got there, they were the RTA or RTD, and that was the Rapid Transit District, and that was just buses. But then they built the Blue Line from Long Beach to downtown. Then they built the Red Line, which was the subway downtown. Then they built the Green Line, which went from the airport to can't think of the name of the place. You know where I'm talking about, right?
So
The
these are
light
bus
rail.
lines.
Well, no, they're rail. They're rail.
Rail lines. Okay.
Yeah, the Blue Line is Long Beach to, like I say, the Blue Line was the first one. That was from Long Beach, 20 miles from Long Beach to downtown. Then they did the Red Line, which is basically the subway. And then they did the green line, which goes from the airport out to east. I forget where it goes to, but anyway, so the RTD, they had a bus police. They called them the RTD. So when I first moved out there, they only had 50 officers. Over a period of 7 or 8 years, they built the green line, the red line, and the blue line, and they had to go from like 50 officers to 500 officers. Okay. And so I did background investigations on their officers. They contracted to me. I had a contract with they were the Metropolitan, well, they were actually the LAC MTA, the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transit Authority. And what they ended up doing was they split that department up, and they got rid of their police department. And so the sheriff, I think LA County Sheriff, took 60% of the policing, and LAPD took 40%. Sound okay?
Yeah, that makes
All right,
sense.
buddy.
I
And
appreciated having you on the show. Thank you so much.
yeah, no problem. All right. All right. Well, it's getting late, so we better get to bed. But anyway, I appreciate you having me on.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, buddy. You too.